On the 6th of January 2021, people around the United States were shocked by images coming from the U.S. Capitol. The pictures, many of which were captured by news agency photojournalists on hand to document the vote certifying Joe Biden's electoral win, depicted rioters trespassing in government offices, or roaming the Senate chamber, or assaulting police officers. This week, a House of Representatives Select Committee set up to investigate the events will begin public hearings aimed at piecing together what happened and who can be held accountable. While the committee can refer cases for prosecution, it is up to the Justice Department to determine if charges are actually filed. But for many of the rioters, the snaps taken that day have already come back to haunt them. To date, more than 810 have been arrested in nearly every U.S. state and Washington, D.C. More than 60 so far have been sentenced to incarceration, with U.S. officials vowing that more prosecutions are likely in the future. Investigators are seeking public help in identifying over 350 rioters, including 250 suspected of attacking police officers. Here are 5 of the most iconic pictures of rioters and what's happened to them since the 6th of January. Among the most widely shared images was that of Jacob Anthony Chansley, a 34-year-old who referred to himself as the QAnon shaman. An ardent Trump supporter, Chansley was pictured wearing horns and a bearskin headdress during the riot, quickly becoming one of the most recognizable figures from the siege. Chansley was arrested just days after the riot. In November, he was sentenced to 41 months in prison for his involvement, in addition to 36 months of supervised release. In court, Chansley said he now believes it was wrong to enter the Capitol and that he hopes to evolve. His sentence is one of the longest so far doled out to the 6th of January rioters. He is currently being held in a low-security federal prison in Arizona. Another rioter, 36-year-old Florida resident Adam Johnson, was famously pictured walking, wearing a Trump beanie, between guide ropes meant for tours at the Capitol. He was carrying a podium bearing the seal of the Speaker of the House and posed in front of a painting depicting the surrender of British General John Burgoyne in the American Revolutionary War. Johnson, who was dubbed "Podium Guy" by social media users in the wake of the riot, was charged with trespassing, disorderly conduct and theft of government property just days later. In November, Johnson pleaded guilty to entering and remaining in a restricted building. The other charges were dropped by prosecutors in exchange for a guilty plea. Additionally, Johnson, who has expressed interest in writing a book, agreed to hand over any publishing profits to the government for a 5-year period. Early this year, he was sentenced to 75 days in prison and was also fined $5,000, £3,996. Ahead of his prison sentence, Johnson reportedly planned to host an "Adam is going to prison" party at a Florida restaurant. The event was eventually canceled by the venue. "Come help me celebrate my last Friday of freedom before I go to prison for the lamest charge in history," a Facebook page for the event read. Another Trump supporter, Richard Barnett, was pictured sitting with one boot on a desk in the office of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The image of Mr. Barnett, dressed in a baseball cap and checkered shirt, went viral, as did pictures of the notes he and others left on Mrs. Pelosi's desk. Mr. Barnett now faces multiple charges in connection with the riot, including obstruction of an official proceeding, entering a restricted building with a deadly or dangerous weapon and disorderly conduct. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges and in April rejected the government's offer of a plea deal. He is currently not in jail. Mr. Barnett's trial is scheduled to begin on the 6th of September. A fourth rioter, Kevin Seafried, was photographed holding a Confederate battle flag while walking through the halls near the entrance to the Senate, encountering little resistance. Mr. Seafried and his son, Hunter, were arrested a week after the riot and hit with multiple charges, including violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds. The father-son duo is scheduled to begin a bench trial, in which their culpability will be determined by a judge, rather than a jury, on the 13th of June. The son of a prominent and politically connected New York City judge, Aaron Mostovsky was famously pictured wearing a fur pelt as a caveman, and holding a police riot shield and wooden stick inside the U.S. Capitol during the 6th of January riot. He told the New York Post he felt that supporters of President Trump were cheated in the election. "I don't think 75 million people voted for Trump. I think it was close to 85 million," he told the newspaper. "I think certain states that have been red for a long time turned blue and were stolen, like New York." Mostovsky was arrested in New York 6 days after the riot and charged with multiple offenses, including theft of government property, assaulting or impeding officers and disorderly conduct. In February, he pleaded guilty to one felony charge of civil disorder, as well as several misdemeanor charges. 3 months later, he was sentenced to 8 months in prison followed by 12 months of supervised release, including 200 hours of community service and $2,000, £1,600, restitution.